All right, Giants, we are going to quickly go through the Q1 Common Assessment Data Dive process so that you can confidently go in and reflect on your data. You know you're ready to engage once you've downloaded a copy of the appropriate Data Dive document that can be found under the instruction folder in the Southside SharePoint homepage. And then you are also settled in and focused on this session. We're going to go through three things. We're going to reflect on our CA, the facilitation of it, and just general key takeaways. And then we're going to go through framing and purpose, and then we're going to do a step-by-step breakdown so that you have a better understanding of each of the 5 steps. So that being said, what went well and what needs to be changed or adapted for upcoming common assessments? A few things that went really well: student familiarity with testing platforms. Also, students were quiet and focused. They really took them seriously. And then we also had the designated support staff meant that they were able to respond more quickly and effectively to the questions that were being asked by the staff they were assigned to support. Things that we need to either adapt or change: one, we need to ensure that we are incorporating formal time for students to submit photos of their work. If the next round of common assessments require students to take photos and upload them of their work, we must include time for students to do so. We also are going to work to revise our checklist so that they're more clear and more concise, so that we're not asking people to digest 10 or 15 pages of information. The next thing is that we're going to avoid hybrid testing rooms. Because we cannot predict the number of students who may change their program selection from in-person to online or vice versa, this is not something that we can 100% commit to being able to do. What we can commit to doing is to reduce the number of hybrid testing rooms as much as is possible. And then lastly, we're going to work to incorporate more role-specific trainings so that people who are test monitors can focus on the role and responsibilities associated with it. And then primary teacher of record sessions so that those individuals can really dig into what that role means and how to best fulfill it. So before we start looking at each of the individual phases of the data dive, I want to pause for a second and just to consider really the unique situation that we're in. We've said it 1,000 times, everything is new, which means the obstacles or challenges are new and the opportunities are also new. So often data dives can be a very intense, which questions did I miss, which students do I need to hone in on, and all of these things that can be in some ways kind of deflating for teachers. And what I really want to push us to do is to stay positive and to stay focused on the wins and how to increase those wins. So as we're discovering this terrain and we're determining new paces of growth and new action steps so that we can reboot after break and finish strong, I really want us to make a conscious decision to stay positive and to seek the opportunities that we discover in our data. So we're going to look at 5 things. The first is student engagement and achievement. The second, we're going to do a more in-depth standard and question analysis, then free response. Then we start to look at individual populations of our students and identify student support needs. And then we are going to name goals and actions that we'll take in the upcoming weeks to ensure that we are growing and improving student outcomes. All right, so let's get started. Step 1, Q1 student engagement and achievement. This is a high-level overview where you're looking at overall performance, and then you're considering the differences between class periods, and you're also reflecting on similarities or differences and grading trends and CA scores. So do you see a correlation between the grades in your classroom and the common assessment data? If so, what are some ways that you can address this? What are some supports that you may need in doing so? Next, we're going to look at the standard and question analysis. And they have this wonderful matrix here that helps you identify what to spiral, when to reteach, and what is a priority. So the first thing you're going to do, well, not click the wrong way. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at student performance. If students performed low, then you're going to consider the impact of that particular standard or question. If it is a high impact question, you are going to explicitly reteach it. That is an important TEK or standard, and all students need to have a refresher. If it's low impact, then it becomes a priority spiral. If students performed well, you then consider the impact. And if it's high impact, then you're going to want to spiral when you're able to. If students performed well and the impact is low, then there's no further action required. So again, this is just a helpful tool to help you see what skills, what standards, what TEKs need to be addressed, and what would be the best approach in addressing it when you're considering spiraling versus reteach. So in the same phase, in step 2, when you're looking at standards and questions, you're going to take a second to go ahead and list those standards and the question numbers out so that you have an easy reference place to go back and see how students performed on specific standards and questions. And then you're going to reflect on a few things. What caused students to be successful? Was it a structure of the question? Was it particularly dense vocabulary? Were there common misconceptions, common errors, or also what are the teaching practices that may be modified or adjusted to ensure that students have a better understanding or a higher level of mastery? Step 3 is when we're looking at our free response. And during this section, we're reflecting on overall student free response submissions, and we're considering one action that you can plan to take to improve or strengthen student skill or knowledge. And the format of this is in the glows and grows. So what is one thing that they did really well on? Maybe it's not just a question, maybe it's that students really annotated all of their free response questions at a really high quality, really high level of quality. And then when you're considering your grows, was there one question or skill that students really struggled on, or is there a specific teaching practice that needs to be modified? Thinking about maybe it's that we need to hold students accountable to annotating their free response questions. In step 4, we start to look at student support, and we start to consider various groups of students and considering their overall performance in relation to general performance. So really honing in on our English language learners, our students with IEPs, our students with 504s, and then our African American students. These are individual groups who have historically not performed as well on Common Assessment, so we want to make sure that we are explicitly addressing and focusing on ways to support them and ways to celebrate them. Our ask here is that you be specific with what you notice, and most importantly, what supports both you and students may need to address any concerns that you have. We are here to support you, and so we want to be able to do that with as much specificity as possible. And the final step is where we are really being specific and naming our goals and our actions. What do we want to accomplish in quarter 2 and 3, and how do we intend to do that? I would strongly encourage you to only have the 2. Name one action for general student, and then a second action for special populations. And narrow your focus, be specific, and be concise. Quarter 2 is halfway through, so it's not that we don't have endless time, and we want to make sure that whatever goals we're establishing, that they are both achievable and relevant to our students. So if you have any questions or concerns in identifying your actions, please reach out to your DOI. And in closing, Next steps, data meetings with DOIs should be concluded by December 4th. I'm intentionally saying should because we all know that we have a lot of various things happening right now. We have STAR testing upcoming, and we have Thanksgiving right around the corner. So the goal is for all data meetings to be concluded by December 4th. And then finally, the finalized data dive documents are due by end of day December 11th, and they should be uploaded to the CA1 data dive folder, which you would find in the Southside SharePoint page. And I'll have this hyperlinked in the CLAW, and your DOIs would also be able to provide it to you if you have a hard time finding it. So thank you for your time today. Thank you for all you did to make Common Assessment successful. And I hope that this is an enlightening and positive process for you. And if I don't see you before Thanksgiving, have a great break, and we will see you soon.